let's begin with Mr. Gosar, so we sort of rotate things.
Pete Gosar, Democratic candidate for governor. Like Jody and Chris, I also don't support the Arizona legislation. I think that you should enforce those laws that are already on the books before you go and create new laws. We have laws. They're federal laws. Let's enforce them. I think that I take a simplistic approach to maybe some of these things. And I say, well, why would somebody come across the border illegally? And I think the simple question and the simple answer is to find work. How do you stop people from coming across illegally to find work? You find the employers. Because it creates an unfair advantage for people, and it also brings up a lot of human trafficking and civil and human rights abuses. And so let's go to the lawyer, or to those people that are employing illegal immigrants and say, you know what? It's illegal. You know it is. Let's take a look at your books. Let's document everybody who's worked for you. And if you have employed those people that are not documentable or don't have the correct paperwork, let's fine you. Because that's where the problem is. It creates an unfair advantage for those people who are going around the system versus those who are doing the system correctly by hiring people that are from the states or are legal to be in the states. And then once that's done, I think once those fines start building, you might not have too many problems with people not checking workers. And I really do think that that's the simple approach to some of this. And you know, the border's long, it's porous. We have to have a discussion about that. You know, do we need to create a big wall? You know, I'm not sure that that's worked, you know. And Pete Gosar, Democratic candidate.
Matt Mead, Republican candidate for governor. Many of my years were spent as a prosecutor, including as U.S. attorney, and I'll disagree with one of the comments made. The fact is, a lot of the cases that we prosecuted, drug cases, were because of methamphetamine, marijuana, Mexican heroin coming south out of the border. And here's my first thought. Legal immigration made this country very great. And if you want to protect legal immigration, you have to deal with illegal immigration. And the first place you start is the border. Because during my time as a prosecutor, I saw many times people who were prosecuted here for a drug-related offense. They were also here illegally. After they served their time, they were deported, and then we saw them back in this country. In order for our country to get serious about legal immigration and illegal immigration, we have to secure the border. Regarding Arizona's law, we are a different state than Arizona, but there is things that we need to do in Wyoming. Number one is, I do not believe that you should have counties, municipalities having sanctuary areas that prohibit any enforcement of immigration laws. Number two, we cannot have the draw of people hiring illegal immigrants, because that is what draws some of them up here who just want to have work, as Pete said, but you cannot have employers doing that, because we saw cases where people were really taken advantage of. We saw cases where a young 14-year-old girl was prostituted out, and she didn't want to say anything because she was feared she and her mom would be deported. So you have to secure that border to secure legal immigration and to protect those citizens who are being abused by illegal immigration.
Ms. Peterson?
I think the federal government does have an obligation to secure our borders. The population of the world continues to grow, and everybody wants to be in America, and the obligation is not being met as well by the federal government as it should be. I very much want the federal government to secure the borders, and I also agree that we should prosecute those who knowingly hire illegals. I think if we did that rigorously, it would solve many of the problems. I would not support any kind of Arizona law for Wyoming. There are aspects of that law that I'm simply not comfortable with, and there's every possibility that the privacy and the civil rights of legal citizens of this country will be impacted by that Arizona law, and I don't believe that that is what America is founded on. I think we have respect for civil rights and individual rights in this country, and I wouldn't support that at all.
Mr.
Tom Euban, Republican for governor. Well, I feel like we need to treat everybody the same. When I get stopped, I get asked for my identification, and I have to prove who I am. Short story, when I went to work for Kinder Morgan, Gain Energy 30 years ago, I worked for them for 28 years, and then we got sold to Source Gas, which everybody knows what Source Gas is. Well, I stayed with them for 1 year. Then when I went back to Kinder Morgan, after 1 year, I had to have 3 sets of identification before I could go back to work for them. And I'd worked for them forever. And they knew who I was. But anyway, I think that's what all employers need to do in this state. And I know that they hire a lot of illegals, because even with the company that I work for, they hire a lot of contractors. And I know of one project we had just the other day, every single one of them was illegals working there. And I don't agree with it. I think I would support the law, the Arizona law, 100%, because I don't feel like it's hurting anybody or infringing on anybody's rights. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer?
It's like a piece of spaghetti gone bad. I know Governor Brewer. I also know her staff, and I have had some great conversations with them in the past few months. Governor Brewer has been forced to do what she did because the federal government has failed, completely failed, in terms of their responsibilities for taking care of the border and the border issues. I have been in the governor's office. I served as chief of staff for 4 years. I can tell you full well what the governor's responsibilities are to his or her citizens of the state. The governor is charged to protect the health and welfare of his or her citizens. Governor Brewer's state budget is falling apart. She can no longer care for her citizens in a good way, in an appropriate way, because her budget for health care, her budget for law enforcement, for incarceration, and her budget for education is imploding under the weight of the illegal immigrants. She is faced with a very serious situation that imperils her own citizens. I know those border issues. I served in the National Guard. I wrote the first border interdiction plan for a movement of illegal drugs across the border. We share over a 2,000-mile border with a third world country. And this issue is not simply about the sovereignty of the state of Arizona. This issue is about the sovereignty of the United States of America.
Thank you. I believe that takes care.